Easy everyone. This is Molecular here from Porto. Um, Regarding my latest release with the Sofa Sound Bristol, my Skank EP, we thought, me and the team at Sofa Sound, thought it would be cool to do a little deconstruction of one of the tracks or one specific thing about one track. And I've decided to deconstruct the bass group and the bass tracks on the title track Skank. Um, if you don't know the track already, I'll just do a quick playthrough of the pre-drop and the first few bars of the drop so you can have a little bit of context, and then I'll dive right into the process of the bass sound design and all that good stuff. So yeah. So let's not make this too boring and let's just go straight into the track. Right, so you get the idea of the main bass line, that it has a little change further in the switch here. Main bass, it's this little track here, this one. Alright, so that has completely no sub. The sub itself is separated here. That's something that I do a lot. I try to keep my subs as clean as possible. You can see on this track there's a lot of processing, loads of filtering and other effects and stuff like that. And also inside Serum itself there's a lot of distortion and all of that stuff. So I thought it would just be easier to keep my sub very clean, to just have a separate track for the sub following the same movement. It's basically the same instance of Serum. I just deactivated oscillator A and B. I'm using the sub here. I'm using LFO3 to control the level. It's in trigger mode, so every time that I trigger a note, it's gonna trigger the LFO. It's in triplets, quarter note triplets. I have a little bit of white noise also on top, just to give a little bit of character, especially with the distortion that's happening. It does sound cool. The distortion, in order for it not to sound too much of an overdrive, I'm also assigning the LFO to the distortion and to the mix. Because if it was up all the time, it would be too much of an overdrive. Then I'm just doing a little bit of an EQ, nothing too much. And then moving on to the other layer of the main bass. So if I group all of these effects together and just turn them off. Okay. So you can see that this here is mostly filtering. There's some chorus. There's freak that does come on in other parts of the track. It's basically working like a flanger or a phaser, or like a mixture of both, and the frequency shifter type thing. It's a really cool plugin for those types of effects. So yeah, the main thing here in Serum is, so yeah, it's the same track as the other one. It's an FM type bass. I have one oscillator that's sending FM to oscillator B here. So oscillator A is actually oscillator B is receiving FM from the sub. There's a lot of FM going on. And then oscillator B is sending FM to A. Okay. I am controlling the amount of FM that there is with this little LFO3, which is playing at the same rate and a very close shape to the sub there, so it sounds concise and not syncopated, because that's not the idea. There's supposed to be layers. There's also white noise here. If I turn off the filter and all of this, alright, it sounds kind of cool. It would sound better if I, for example, just turned up the octave here and automated the level of this. But I'm using the filter with a very, very big resonance amount, so it really scopes out the frequencies, and it does give the character to the bass. It's all about the bandpass filter here. They are a bit detuned, but I don't think that it does really make a big difference if I turn it back to 0. Yeah, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. It moves a little bit, but there's unison here on oscillator A with a little bit of slight detuning, so that's already going to give it the movement. So yeah, moving on to the effects, most of the like stereo and chorus part of the sound comes from this effect here, which is the hyper dimension. And obviously chorus after that as well. I'm automating the mix of the dimension expander here, because it may sound very big and it sounds like a very short reverb is happening, and the tail can be a little bit annoying, so I'm taming that with the mix, so it just follows the movement of the bass. So every time that the bass wobbles and it reaches the maximum point here on the LFO, it's when the dimension, when the size of the actual like hyper dimension is at the biggest part, and then it comes back down with the LFO of the of the main bass. I have a flanger just to give it some extra movement. It's not like it's doing a lot. Then the distortion, obviously this is sub. This is the extra layer for the sub. So I'm filtering it out, and then I have the bandpass here, which is moving. If I open up the automation, which is moving downwards. Every single bar, so actually sorry, every 4 bars it's moving down. A little bit of driving on the filter, and I also have using Freak here. Again, it's not doing much. I think it does affect like the stereo field, and it works like a mixture of a flanger and either a frequency shifter or ring mod. This was made in a phase where I was trying out different native instruments effects. You'll see a lot of freak and drive and bite being used on the bass tracks here, because I was testing them out, and this is the one that I don't really understand how it works. Maybe I should just read the manual, I normally do, but for this one I don't know why I didn't. And then I'm also automating a notch filter here, which also gives a lot of character to the sound, but this one is much slower. You can see the time that it takes to go up and down, just so that it's a continuous progression. And then this comes up in a next section. I think it's on this one. Nope. Yeah, I eventually scrapped it, apparently. Maybe here? No. I did scrap this one. Then yeah, Freak, another version of Freak that comes on later in the track should be here. This one is a bit more intensive. It's a full mix and you can see the sound oscillating between left and right a little bit. And then I add an utility, which is just to pull the volume up, and it comes up just in a specific part of the track, which is in the intro. When I really want people to perceive that there's something new coming in, because the hard thing about this track is making the drop fit the reggae vibe intro. So obviously I have loads of vocals and different tracks happening and loads of effects happening here. The drums filtering, but really what makes a difference is this filter. It really helps the listener like grasp a little bit of the idea what's coming next. Alright, and then I have the chorus, which is, this chorus is amazing. It's free. Everything by Tal is amazing. I know that Arturia just launched a free version of a chorus that emulates the same one as this one does. I still haven't tried it yet. It was released in something like December or something, with an UI that looks really cool also. I still have to try it, but for now I'll recommend this one. I use it a lot. I even have a send track in my most recent works. I have a send track specifically with just this and a high pass filter, so that I don't have sub being fed into the chorus. And that's just like the instant way to make your mid basses like pop up in the mix or in the stereo field actually. With the knob here all the way to the wet and a little bit of volume, and you can also add some saturation or compression to the chorus send, and it does work like a charm. Other things that could be interesting here on the bass track is this first bass. Okay, so that's just another take on this type of bass with some reverb. So you'll see here, this is so this is the same idea here. You can see that there's the same first LFO1 and the first LFO2 that are not being used, by the way. LFO2 is being used to modulate the pitch on the oscillator A very, very quickly, like sort of like emulating it like a transient. But the main tone comes from obviously having the sub oscillator, which is 2 octaves higher than these two, frequency modulates the oscillator B, and then that also modulates the oscillator A. It's not doing a lot, but if you do use it, you need a bigger FM sound. And then bandpass here, it's not the bandpass 24, it's the 12 dB per octave one. It's a little bit more open, and it does go higher in the filter cutoff. And then obviously the same thing here is happening. So some of that hyper dimension, some of that flanger again, and the distortion obviously. And that's it. That's happening for this bass here. And then this is one of my favorite sounds on the track. And this is just a very simple 808 sample. Oops. So if and you can see there's dirt again, that bundle from native instruments. So this is just an 808 sample. I'm not sure if I'm modulating the pitch. No, I'm not. Okay. So this is just a very simple 808 sample. And what I did, and let's do this step by step. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding some white noise with erosion. So now when I drive it, it's gonna drive the very low 808 with the white noise layer to it. So it's gonna create this fuzzy type sound. Alright, so I'm driving a little bit, not too much. I'm also taking out in the output. And then when I start it, it does give a completely different output with just this little bit of white noise. Then overdrive, just focusing on those mids. And then dirt. Just give that final touch again. And then the EQ to focus on those very high frequencies. It is being automated, so it does sound different on this one, I think. Yeah, because I'm focusing, and this is obviously the way that our ear perceives things. So if we're making like a 15 dB increase in a certain frequency and the other ones are lower, obviously our ears will perceive more of this frequency, so it sounds, so this is the tone of the sound that our ears perceive it, because it's such a very short sound. And then here, that's a good old tone again, and then we're going back to the first tone here. So that's basically what's happening with this 808. Just some distortion and focusing on specific frequencies on the tone. Then as for the bass group, Dirt again, Bite, they're just doing little things. So Dirt is just doing a little bit of saturation. It's not like it's doing any distortion, because it's so small on the dry wet amount on the mix, and so small on the drives, that it's very, very small on the whole whole bass bus, sorry. It's just as I'm just using this to be able to saturate all of these sounds together, all of the bass group together, so they sound a little bit more concise. I think that any type of processing on a bus will always make that bus sound more glued and gelled. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm giving a bit of white noise layer to the sound. Not that much. And then I'm using the drive and the bite. The bite does give it some grit. Yes, it does. If I push it, then you can really perceive what it's doing. It's just giving that crunchy top end that I love. Then saturator, just doing a little bit of drive. And then I have two compressors for sidechain, and this is something that I'm avoiding to do with the Ableton compressor, because I think that it's not good enough for sidechaining here. It can create some artifacts when it's very fast attack like this, but I don't think it's perceivable. It is perceivable when there is no drums playing. You can hear some pops and clicks, but I think that the transients from the drums completely mask that. The problem is when these clicks and pops start masking the transients from the drums and start masking other type of stuff like hats and things like that. That wasn't the case here, so I'm using the Ableton compressor. This is something that I don't do at the moment. I use Pro C to compress now, sidechain compression actually. But yeah, it does the same thing. One of them just doesn't have those clicks. I don't think that the Pro C has those clicks. I also don't do fast attacks like this. I will go for like 0.2, 0.25 to avoid those clicks. And then I have A1 Stereo Control. This is a free plugin that lets you just, it has this save bass button here where you can just click it and it completely makes everything mono below this frequency here that you choose. And then I just had the CQ so I could look at what was going on. So yeah, that was the bass group deconstruction for the track Skank. I hope this wasn't too boring. I tried my best to give some serious knowledge. And yeah, I hope you skanked a lot to my latest release on Sofa Sound, and I'll catch you later. Peace.